pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do before we start with the presentations is introduce our acting county manager, Josh. I'd like to just say thank you for stepping up the way you have. It's almost been amazingly seamless and very helpful that everything's going in such a smooth way, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is going through the Walk a Mile event. I don't see Barbara Sush, but I do see
Sarah Dittmar, hi.
Good. Hello.
I have information, I just didn't realize we were up right away.
Yep, you're first on the list.
Alrighty then. Well, perhaps I'll pass that out and leave that for you all. I don't have enough for everyone in the room. My name is Sarah Dittmar. I am the program manager of RISE, which is the Rape Crisis Program here in Sullivan County. It stands for Rape Intervention Services and Education. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is in April, and we are having our third annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes fundraiser, which is to kind of put a lighthearted spin on a really serious subject that we all need to be talking about. And it gets men, women, and children to all participate in the walk, but the fun part is to get men to wear red high heels. And this year the walk will be on April 20th here at the Government Center, and we'll be just going around to Broadway and back to the Government Center. And the 2013 Sullivan Leadership Class has selected RISE to be the recipient of their fundraising project.
Who
So
has?
they're the Leadership Sullivan
Oh,
class.
okay.
So they will be having a chicken barbecue fundraiser at De Hoyos Park immediately following the walk, and they're even going to be providing buses to help bring people over from the Government Center to the park. RISE provides services to men, women, and children in the county. All of our services are free. We operate a 24-hour rape and sexual assault helpline. I'm the only full-time employee, and then I have a client advocate that works 4 days a week, and then we rely on our volunteers to help with the 24-hour hotline, to help with some counseling, and with also outreach, which is a huge part of what we do, going to meetings like this throughout the county, to health fairs, into the schools, to bring awareness and to ultimately prevent sexual assault in our community. Last year we served over 500 clients. Many of them are under the age of 18, and that's right here in Sullivan County. For a lot of people who don't have insurance, our program is really important because they don't need any insurance to be able to come and receive our services. We also go into the schools and provide many prevention education groups, and we also will see kids individually for counseling in schools because it's just too difficult for many of their families to get them to us. So we're located in the hospital, but we're happy to go throughout the county and work with all different agencies and organizations.
So you know most of the law enforcement folks in the room, Jim Farrell, Robert Beer.
Do.
Okay, good.
So we're trying to really work closely together to make sure that we are putting away the sex offenders, keeping them away in our community, and preventing sexual assault. Actually, this morning we had the New York State Police Forensic Lab from Albany came down and did a training for our law enforcement, folks from the DA's office, from our emergency room, some of the nurses who perform some of the sexual assault kits, and our rape crisis volunteers. The scientist who performs the DNA test, she explained the sexual assault kit and collecting evidence, and the senior investigator talking about how, working with the victim, the survivor, and also the perpetrator. So it was a great collaboration, and we certainly want to really work closely together.
We really appreciate it. There was some discussion earlier today about the, housing of sex offenders in Liberty, and that's always been an issue that we talk about it a lot, and there's still, a long way to go.
And a
So-
big concern now is that the Liberty has a bowling alley, which is great. And that brings a lot of young people who can now go there, and I do groups in that school, and I know these young kids are being dropped off, and there's a pizza place and a Chinese place, and that's wonderful that they can walk there. That's steps from the Lincoln Motel where every homeless sex offenders on parole is housed. So that's a huge concern. And we're trying to talk more and more to kids about, you know, how to be safe, the buddy system. My group at Liberty, we just had the Liberty School Resource Officer came, which is so important to have the school resource officers, to talk to middle school girls who are constantly being contacted by older men. And they have privacy settings, and they don't want to tell their parents because then they're not going to be able to go on all these sites. And everyone is going on Facebook and all the different, you know, sites. To take that away from them is wrong. And, you know, how do they report it? And so he explained to them how important it is to report it. And it's unbelievable how, you know, these are local men that are, you know, preying on these, you know, young girls. And for the girl who's not speaking, and young boys, we have many young men in this community who are molested all the time. And it's by people they know. These aren't strangers.
Well, thank you for coming. I know we met about a year ago, and we kept saying, you've got to come, and with this event, it'll raise awareness. I also hope that people will come even if they don't wear red high heel shoes.
Yes, you don't have to wear high heels. You can wear sneakers, and by all means, we hope to just have the support there. Thank
So
you.
if you have your literature that you can pass out, that'd be really great. Thanks again for coming.
Thank
Really
you all
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Sure. So it is now, I also want to introduce Isaac,
Green Diebold.
thank you, Green Diebold, who does videotaping of government all over the county, posts it on,
Community Film Depot. It's a place for community film for community, and we're trying to promote transparency and accessibility to government process.
thank you so much for doing your service this way. Now I'd like to introduce Judge Josephine Finn from the Dream Tank and the event that's taking place on April 13th.
Hi. I've been here all day, so I'm tired.
You know how we feel.
There you go.
I'd like to say thank you to my representative from District 8. I appreciate what you do now.
You mean you did before?
Josephine
Or
is
might you do
here
a better job?
every week.
Wow. Yeah, what we're doing is a health day at the Dream Tank on April 13th, and we have a panel, and we have a local doctor, Dr. Abraham Garfinkel is going to be there to speak, and to participate on the panel. And I twisted the arm of Gladys Walker. It's my sister. She ain't happy, but she's coming. And she's gonna talk about diabetes because that does happen to run in my family, and so she knows a bit about it. And she's gonna do some personal talking about that. And we have Ann Young, a licensed practical nurse, will be on the panel. And Alita Lyman, I twisted her arm too. Had to do a little arm twisting. She's taking the RSVPs, and I asked Lester, you sent out a whole thing for us, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And a lot of people are calling, but I need RSVPs because the food is being donated. And I've gotten Erin Lipsky, if any of you've tasted the stuff that she does.
She does good catering.
Everybody says, yeah, okay. So she's doing that, I twisted her arm. And and it's gonna be paid for by an anonymous donor. So it's not gonna cost the Dream Tank any money. So that's good. So please come and join us. And then the kids wanna show you how to get some exercise through drumming and dancing. And I'm anxious to see how some of you dance. I want that on film, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So Josephine,
Well, you wanted it to show it.
April 13th, it starts at 11:30.
April 13th, 11:30, and the location
Is 396 Broadway.
okay, that's where the Community Unity.
That's the Recovery Center's facility on Broadway, the Rulin Building.
396.
A lot of us know it as the Rulin Building.
So Josephine, by the time this is all over, you'll probably have gone to every committee meeting that exists. But before we do that, I wanted to just check that everybody's got a copy of this. It says draft. This is a resolution. And basically, the reason that I'd like to bring this up as part of your presentation is because there's been a lot of discussion. It started during the budget period in December with regards to consolidating the programs that are paid for as legislative initiatives with county money in the Youth Bureau. And it was first brought to my attention when Lesha said that there was a line item that said other for $114,000, which turns out was with YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and the Dream Tank. So then what happened was we've still been having ongoing discussions about the merits, pros and cons of having all the programs that deal with the youth under the Youth Bureau. So what I did was I went back to the 2008 resolution that says copy there, resolution number 4108. What this resolution did was it took appropriations from, at the time, Senator John Bonasek had allowed for sales tax in New York State to be increased, and that portion was specifically earmarked for public safety. So at that time, the Dream Tank was, it says, in order to address the potential crisis, the sheriff recommends the filling, this was another emergency dispatcher's position, and the creative think tank, also known as the Dream Tank Project, addresses the potential crisis that is developed in youth criminal activity, which cannot be solved by the criminal justice system alone. At that time, the amount to the Dream Tank was $60,000. Now, what's happened in the intervening time, as I said, there's been a lot, you contacted me, you were saying there's pros and cons to going under the Youth Bureau. So I checked with various, because there was a potential conflict with the Youth Bureau, there's also potential conflict with probation. So I asked Dick Martinkovic at the 11th hour if he wouldn't mind stepping up to the plate, and then we go back. The merry-go-round is now arriving where we started. Whereas resolution number 4108 originally granted funding to the creative think tank's Dream Tank to address the potential crisis in youth criminal activity, and now the legislative funding due to the economic situation we're in right now is about half at $33,000. Whereas it is prudent public policy to continue to dedicate resources for the project, the Sullivan County Legislature believes that it's in the best interest to move the creative think tank administratively and budgetarily under the Division of Public Safety and have a representative of the creative think tank report monthly to this committee. And that would be, you know, with regards to your contract or the contract with the Dream Tank, what the deliverables are, and how you're meeting your goals, how many people are actually not having to go to jail or probation or have been deterred from, you know, gangs or whatever it is. So if you, if people have questions that they would like to ask you about the nature of your programs, I'm happy for people to ask. Right now it's 4:20 and we want to keep this going at a pretty, you know, good clip. So is there anyone who would like to address any questions to
No, but I'd like
Judge
to make
Finn?
a comment if I could. Several of us met with Josephine many years ago when we knew there was problems throughout the county with our youth, and no disrespect to the judge, but you know, some of our young youth are afraid of her, which is probably a good thing, and they respect her, which is also, that's a great thing. And I know for a fact, and I'm sure Josephine can prove it because we've met with some of the people from her groups, she has saved the county thousands and thousands of dollars by keeping these young people out of our jails. So I want to thank her, and I want to also say, if it was up to me and I had the votes, I'd give you $100,000 because you're saving that plus more. So
I'm great for you.
So keep up the good work, and
Come from a family of preachers.
So what I'd like to do now is make a
I
motion.
would also like to make a comment.
Sure, go ahead, Kitty.
If we go back to when we originally were dealing with the county budget back in December, it was determined by a number of us that we thought that we should streamline things within the county budget. And what I was attempting to do there with the Youth Bureau was to make sure that all youth organizations that were serving the youth of this county go through one door, which had an application process. I've spoken to Judge Finn at length about this, She does have the documentation to go through that door, it's just a matter of putting it in a different mindset. So I personally think that it's best to serve the youth of this county, in the metropolitan area in this county, and in the rural areas of this county, for all youth to have a door through which the youth go, and that's why I would be more in favor of making sure that the Dream Tank / the Creative Think Tank, make its application through the Youth Bureau, and it doesn't say anything about funding it more or funding it any less. It's just making sure that all youth programs go through the Youth Bureau.
Thank you, Kitty. Judge Finn, would you like to address Kitty's concern, please?
Well,
Do you have, the children are from the western part of the county, they're from all
well,
over?
here's what I
Do you-
said to Kitty earlier, and I'll say it again.
Okay.
She insisted I call her Kitty. Call her Mrs. Better. Here's the thing. This is a program for high-risk youth. It started in 2007 with the gang activity, with seeing kids in my court and being tired of locking them up, I told her, on the back end, when I wasn't doing anything on the front end to do, that was preventative. So we came here as a preventative program.
Yes.
We don't play basketball with them, we don't do basket weaving, we teach them how proper protocol when you're dealing with people, we teach them how to try to socialize some of these people, these young people. They're not gonna go to the Boys and Girls Club, they're not gonna go to the YMCA, unless in some cases for nefarious reasons. Okay, I'm telling you. Now, I have other kids in the Dream Tank, you should know. I now have middle-class kids who have come to the Dream Tank and said, we want to help. So the young man who did our video is the son of 2 lawyers in this county. And he happens to just be very talented. So what am I going to tell him? Go away, you're not a high-risk youth. It happens to help my kids because they talk to them about things that the other kids have never seen or never experienced. So I just want you to know the makeup of it. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't know what the other youth groups do. Again, we're free. Everything we do, we don't charge anybody anything. We get money from you. We also try to raise a few bucks ourselves. This is my sister organization, RISE. I'm in Community Unity with RISE and with the Federation for the Homeless and with the Center for Discovery. God, I'm telling you, I'm tired. What, the Recovery Center. Did I get everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
And your program is free. That's huge. I worked with children in foster care who all participated in the Dream Tank. They couldn't take, art classes at the Art Society of Livingston Manor. That cost money. The YMCA, their programs, the Boys and Girls, a lot of those things, may have some scholarships and different funding. The Dream Tank's entirely free. That's a huge, huge, impact on many youth all throughout the county. Not just Monticello, Liberty and Falls, kids go there too.
I was asked where I get them from, wherever they need to come from. The school refers them. Their parents step up to me in the court when they're in trouble and say to me, can they come to the Dream Tank? And I say, yes, they can come. As long as you understand they're gonna follow our rules, okay? Probation has sent people occasionally. Foster care kids, they come from everywhere. Other kids bring kids. This kid's in trouble. Can they come into the Dream Tank? This kid is homeless. Can he come to the Dream Tank? We do all of that kind of stuff because they're the kids that are more than likely going to end up in a bad situation. So when people ask me over and over again, are you servicing people from all over the county? They're welcome, but the majority of the kids come from their places where crimes are high. They come from Monticello, Liberty, Fallsburg. I've had them from Bethel. I've had kids from Calhoun. They've aged out, and I would like to report that they're in college. The few that I had from Calhoun, one of them ended up being an honor student. So yes, do we keep attendance? Yes, we keep attendance. Do people have to, I have the police chief, Doug Solomon, the new chief. I'll get him trained, but I want people fingerprinted before they come and work with these kids. I really do, because I don't want them to have to see RISE. You understand what I'm saying? I can't have certain people around these kids. So I don't know what else to tell you. I like the way it is simply because I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't wanna be micromanaged. I think we're doing a good job. We've been doing it for 5 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The youth bureau, I told Lesha I'm gonna work more closely with her because she has some skills and some things that I didn't know about. But, I like it the way it is because it makes it easy for us to get who we need, and I don't have to say to a person, I need you to come do a workshop, and I'll see if I can get you paid. You know, the money's there. There's more incentive for you to come and help me. People don't charge us a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm just saying, it's easier for me this way, and that's why I like it that way. And no offense to Kitty, because I understand her heart is in the right place in what she wants to do. But she has one opinion how it should go, I have another.
All right,
But there was no proposal to cut any funding, right?
No,
No.
but it's
No.
the way it's done is different when you go through the youth bureau.
It
You actually have to
changes.
voucher it, and then you have to wait for your money. And it could be potentially cut. We had a little talk about that, but we thought we understood maybe there was a way not to have it cut. In other words, if I had some money that I wanted to appropriate for something, and it was close to the end of the year, and then maybe that program didn't happen till January, my understanding was that money would get kicked back, and I wouldn't be able to use it. I don't want that to happen.
Well,
So,
how does it work currently now? The funding, your funding.
we get
gets it
money
straight from us.
quarterly.
Right, so to go through the youth bureau, that would change?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely, it would. And it's just more work for me. It really is.
Change is very difficult, and I do
It is,
understand
but,
that.
and I don't buck change just to buck change.
okay,
because
so it's
a lot.
4:30
Sometimes
now,
change
and
is
I'd
money.
like to call a motion on this.
Move the
Cora,
Yes.
are you presenting the resolution today then?
Yeah, I'm gonna present
I'm
it
calling
right
the
now.
question.
I'm moving the
I'll
resolution.
second it.
Okay, I'll move it. Jean's in a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Josephine. I know you spent a lot more time here today than you ever intended,
I'm
but
free.
welcome to our
Oh,
world.
we didn't vote yet, hold on.
Oh.
You need to call the question.
What's the
All
question?
in
Call
favor?
the question.
No, your discussion, and then the vote.
I'll call the question again.
No, I seconded, that's done
We
already.
had a first and a second.
So where are we
Call
going?
the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
One,
Motion's
two,
carried.
three, four. Alan, you're
Any
opposed
opposed?
or for? Okay, 5-0.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All righty.
So,
Now you see how your tax dollars are spent.
Alan is asking.
I was trying to speak, but
Oh,
The question
Please
was
do.
called.
I'll just put this in public comment. I mean, I've had the chance to see firsthand the work that Josephine does, and she's serving a niche. It's very much needed in the community, so you've done some great work, and I just want to make comment.
thank you, and I know you show up. Your wife Jane, you know I love, not that I don't love you too.
Love her a little more.
That's
People keep
understandable.
putting words in my mouth. Can I get an attorney?
Take your pick.
Look in the mirror and say, can I get an attorney?
want an
Thank you
attorney or
very
a lawyer?
much. And sure, we'll report, and that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna continue to work. Whatever you want, call me anytime.
Moving along.
And, let's just continue to work together, and I'll be working with you too.
okay, thank you very much.
See you.
I'd like
Thanks,
to,
Josephine.
I appreciate it. We're rolling on.
Bye.
Bye. I'd like to acknowledge George Gibson from the New York Department of Homeland Security. You're welcome to have a seat now. Thank you for joining us. We're going to move right on to the current status of the New York SAFE Act. And Dick Martinkovic is going to give us what's happened since we had the rally and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I guess there was only one movement towards some of the things that wanted to be accomplished, which basically this legislature voted that the entire law be taken off the books or repealed. But they did vote as part of the budget process, our Assembly and Senate in Albany, to clarify that law enforcement does not have a restriction as to the size of the clip or the amount of rounds that you have in that clip. To my knowledge, that has been approved. Magazine, thank you. That's why I'm looking at you, Chief. So that end is good because we
Wait,
knew
can you
that,
clarify that again?
meaning the way the law was written, law enforcement would have to walk around with clips that, magazines that could only be, thank you, can only be no bigger than carry 7 rounds. In other words, and there's no such a thing as a 7-round magazine. And now law enforcement who traditionally carry 15-round magazines can have those magazines as they are, working their job or off duty if they have a gun, which comes with their sworn powers. So that's been clarified.
They
The oth-
have to be active
They have to
sworn
be
officers.
active sworn officers at this time. There is a move, which I know that the Sheriff's Association, among others, is trying to get changed so that it covers other employees who work for the law enforcement agencies. The other part is that those of us that are the regular gun permit people, we can now have a 10-round magazine, but it cannot have more than 7 rounds in the magazine. You can have 1 round in the chamber of the gun, but you have 3 spares you can't fill. But that's how the law is today as we sit here.
So
Okay.
at what point the law, at this point now, the law has been ratified? It's in,
It's been amended to include those changes.
and when will it become law?
I don't know that answer.
All right, well, we don't know when it'll become law, but that's it for that. Okay. So now we want to go to update number 2, which is the current status of the New York State bills on the 911 surcharge, Senate and Assembly 4357. Alex got called away to a family emergency, so.
But I got the answers. Okay, Alex could not be with us today. He has a friend that's having some open heart surgery as we sit here, so he has to be excused. As you all know, we had 2 bills. We had Senate 1720 and Assembly 4357. We all did send emails. We sent all kinds of letters. We know that there was at least 200 plus emails that did go to the various elected officials in our Senate and our Assembly.
Thanks to Annie from us.
And the good news is that these bills are still sitting in committees at the state level.
Good news.
That's good news. Well, around there, they seem to forget bills. That's the good news. The bills are still there and they still can be moved.
At some
But they
point.
haven't moved out of committee because they got all wrapped into the budget process. Now, here's the piece that gets a little bit mind-boggling, but hopefully that'll get squared away. The newly adopted budget has appropriated $75 million for 911 grants, and we'll be awaiting the parameters for those grants and doing our best to continue to secure additional funding. On the downside of the budget, they've eliminated the $9.3 million 9/11 reimbursement program, for which we in Sullivan County was only getting $38,000. But according to our NISAC liaison, it's expected that the state will carve out a similar amount of the 75 mil allocation mentioned earlier and utilize that in some form to replace the reimbursement program. So what the real answer is, it's still in committee and it's ongoing for more discussion.
So the
The
last.
fight is not over.
Right, so the last time I spoke to Alex, he said we should still keep sending
Yes.
these, and to what end are we, because it's a 2-pronged fight. Now that we've got the 75 million, that's part of the competitive grant process, which is called round 3. Now, Alan, you had a specific question about what's called, the term that's called supplanting. In other words, if we've already made this bond commitment, does that now mean we can't go for a grant? We got a very long and very specific technical answer from Christina Porter, who was the person that Kitty, Jean, and I saw in Albany. That was the grants administrator. What she said is, we understand that no county can do this through bonding alone. Granting is a very specific portion. As long as the part that you ask for in subsequent rounds, the work has not commenced prior to the application of that round. In other words, we applied for round 1 and 2, which we'll be getting, which we got 1.2 million, and we're going to be giving an update on what's going on with the interoperability and the towers. But at the same time, we have this small window of, I believe it's April, the end of April, when the next round of funding.
They're saying it's going to come out in April.
Okay, it's going to come out in April. Okay.
Yes, round 3.
Round
Coming up,
3.
coming
So
up.
then what we're going to do is what was recommended to us when we went to Albany, and that is to apply for the fullest extent possible.
That's correct.
And that was what we promised we were going to do, and we're going to deliver on that promise.
Right, and the bottom line is we can't start some work and start to pay for it and then come back and say we want to put the grant money towards it. We've got to have the grant money awarded to us first, then we can proceed to spend that money on the project.
So that brings
So-
us to the
so
current.
we have enough to get going with the 1.2 to keep us busy for a while, so that's not gonna be an issue.
Plus, we got
But-
an extension on round one.
Yeah, round one, we did get the extension. We're waiting for the final paperwork to come to us.
Okay, so that segues right into the status of the radio frequency upgrade, because we have meetings every,
Before you go there, can I back up and ask regarding the number 2? Okay. My concern is that, yes, it's still in committee. Now, from what I understand about anything that sits in committee, it can die in committee if it doesn't get out of committee by the end of this legislative session. Is that not true?
That is correct.
Okay, so I would then ask for this body, this committee, and the 911 committee, and the local papers in places that are, to continue to ask for emails, blast the state, so that they either get who our present legislators are on board as co-sponsors, which they already are, but ask the heads of those committees, the Ways and Means in the Assembly and the Finance in the Senate, to move these things out of committee and to the floor for a vote. I think it's very important that everybody knows that if it doesn't go to a floor for the vote by the end of this legislative session, these bills get a new number tag to them, they have to get reintroduced next year, and it stymies it back. And if you look at what those committees have on their agenda for this term, these bills are no place on the top 10 of those committees' agenda. So the only way that they're gonna bubble up to the top of those committees' agenda is by the pressure from the ground, the pressure from the people. So maybe 200 letters went in, and that was phenomenal, but we need 1,000 more.
Greg, the chairs are over there.
Okay, yeah, I was,
And also, Kitty, I agree with you, it doesn't come up to the top of the pile unless it doesn't cost any money.
But
Then
this
suddenly
money-
those kinds of things can get done, bing, 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 but as soon as you put it, like this will, to be moving money around, where they're using that money in other
Something
directions, and we want that money so we can put it into our radio and 911 system, suddenly, oh, I don't know if we can do that.
But it's already, am I not correct, that this is already a surcharge of the $1.20 on everybody's individual phone bill every month? The money was already designated for.
Designated and is collected, but is not given to what the purpose of its original intention. That's where that's where it is, so.
Which is where the argument from the ground needs to come from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll go into the other part while our chair stepped out for a minute. We did have a status meeting of the radio project team. Commissioner Ed McKenna was with us. McKenna, I'm all right. McAndrew, talking like some old days. Ed joined us along with the county attorney's office. We did talk about, first of all, we have made progress this week, speaking to 3 of the landholders that we need to get leases renewed so we can start our project. We also spoke about the tower sites, about making them ready and getting them ready. And Ed is preparing some time estimates and cost estimates. We also talked about where we are with Blue Wing in terms of the design for those sites and so forth. It's an enormous job. We've spent some time, and we're going to be spending more time next week. We're going to be meeting on and off in small groups, and then we're going to try to have at least once a month a meeting where we can review with everybody of where we stand. And that's the easiest and simplest way I can tell you. I can say that I did contact the 3 owners for the leases. They were very cooperative, thank God. And I think that we will continue to talk to them in the very near future. Hopefully I'll bring you some contracts that can be reviewed and we can move on. So that's important to all of us.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dick. So the next thing that I'd like to present is a resolution. If you'll look, move.
I'll second it.
Okay, and it's a request, committee supporting New York State Legislation 2000, that's a Senate bill, Assembly Bill 1715 to amend the mental hygiene law in relation to requiring video camera in facilities operated by the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. So on March 25th, we received a letter, Cora Edwards, Jean Benson, I'll submit that as
I
correspondence.
have it on.
Thank you, and it's good.
You're gonna read it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to read it?
No.
Okay. So basically,
It's also known as Paula's Law. You might be
Thank
more
you.
familiar with it that way.
as a matter of fact, it's, what page is it, Bill? 8?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna pass this around. I can't find page 8.
I will, let me find
Between
it.
7 and 9.
Thank you. Okay,
Got
so
it.
anyone who wants to have a copy of the Legislative Gazette, which was in Albany. So what happened in December 2009, Paula Liblick, who's Bill's sister, was unfortunately abused in her state-run group home. And she could have, her life could have been saved, and it could have been saved had there been video cameras. And this is something that I think it's 2 years running now. The first time it was brought up was in 2011. I actually went with Bill to the New York State Assembly, and we stayed there for a day, waiting to hear, to get, for testimony. So it's finally come. We have our own Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther, Chair of the Mental Health Committee, introduced the Assembly Bill 1715, and State Senator David Carlucci is introducing the Senate side. So what we're asking is for the support, the same way as we did with the 911, and the next thing I'm going to do is ask for a motion.
No, we have the
We have the
motion
motion.
second.
Okay,
We
now
just need to
we
vote.
what do I have to do next?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Bill,
Any
did it die on
discussion?
the Senate list? What
You know
happened?
what happened last year, just to give everyone a background, my sister was 62 years old. She was severely and profoundly functionally disabled. And on a Monday, she went to her day program, and they noticed black and blue marks on her thighs and bleeding from her diaper. And the black and blue marks, which I will show you, which I took in the rape unit.
I don't think we want to see
No,
those.
I'll just show you, they were healed, black and blue marks, so there was a complete cover-up of where her rape took place. Our district attorney, Jim Farrell, I called him immediately from the rape unit when I was there, and he was on the phone with the state police and local police, and to this day, they do not know who raped my sister. My sister died 2 years later, a few days from now, because whoever raped her gave her a parasite called strongylides, which is a sexually transmitted parasite that's only found in the Caribbean, and no hospital in the world was able to find that that's what she had, was a parasite, because she was developmentally disabled, and people tried to neglect them. And the premise of Paula's Law, and I will say, I have supported RISE from day one. I walked with RISE, and I know what they go through, and I know the assault and the abuse of people who do not vote. And those are the functionally and mentally disabled. The first item that the governor had this year on a budget cut was to cut the programs for the developmentally disabled. We have two things that are important here in Sullivan County. We are saturated with group homes. And that's a good thing in a sense where we're providing housing for people who need housing. And we no longer have the Willowbrook and the Letchworth Village era where my sister came from. She was placed in a group home in Orange County with 5 consumers, which the state likes to call them now. And those 5 consumers, since my sister's rape, the group home is closed, the 5 consumers were displaced, 5 employees were fired. It's like it never happened. Paula's Law is to say, let's put video cameras outside of day programs and group homes so we could monitor the surveillance of comings and goings. There are no leads. There was a cover-up. Nobody knows anything. We go anywhere today, we see surveillance cameras. We get emails about how cheap it is to have surveillance cameras in our own homes. You go to a convenience store, the surveillance cameras. Everywhere you're monitoring, but when it comes to protecting our most vulnerable population. Paula's Law must be passed because there's a lot of legislation out there that could trickle down along with Paula's Law. There is a big committee of people who are advocates for the functionally disabled, and we had several press conferences this year in Albany. Aileen Gunther, fortunately for us, is now the chairperson of the Mental
All
Health
in
Committee
favor?
of the New York State Assembly.
Any opposed?
In the Assembly last year, to answer your question, Felix Ortiz was the former chairman, it never got out of committee. In the Senate, it got out of the committee right before the Senate ended, and it went to the Finance Committee. John Bonasek, who is our state senator, may not be a sponsor of it, but he's a supporter of Paula's Law. And this year, the Mental Health Committee of the State Senate voted to move it to the Finance Committee. It is now in the Assembly Mental Health Committee. I have spoken to Sheldon Silver about the bill. I have spoken to everyone you could think of under the sun. Everyone supports it, but then they come to figuring out money. And the state does not want to give money to people who do not vote, who are mentally disabled and are functionally disabled. And we as a society have an obligation to protect these people. And just by getting cheap cameras, which they did have at my sister's home after I insisted, and they did put into a group home after I insisted, one camera in all the entrances with a little computer, and that's all you need these days. So I'm asking everyone for the importance of Sullivan County, because it shows, Aileen, that we support her in this legislation. It also shows that we support the employees, because it also protects employees of group homes to see their monitoring and goings and that they're doing their job and they're not leaving their job. And it also, most importantly, protects our most vulnerable members of society. So I ask you, and I thank Cora, because she came up with me that day, to testify right after my sister died, because the New York Times has done several exposés on the functionally disabled. And I will say every publication, every media outlet has supported Paula's Law. And I ask this legislative body to please support it as well, so you can make a statement, and hopefully it will get out of committee this year and it will be moved. Aileen has told me she's trying to get it on the next agenda of the Mental Health Committee of the Assembly and trying to get this bill pushed.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And
I'd like
si-
to ask a question.
Okay.
regarding it, if I may.
Yep.
Okay. It talks about cameras, and I'm not trying to be anti things today. My brother was wheelchair bound from when he was 12 years old and passed on. So I understand the need of the disabled, and my brother was one of the leaders of Disabled in Action and a number of things. I know his concern would be, are you trying to put a camera in my bedroom?
No.
Are you trying to put a camera in where I'm getting washed? Are you taking away my privacy? And that is my major concern.
This is not a privacy issue. There is legislation talking about in-group homes. I'm not talking about group homes. We're talking the entrance and the exit. That would protect your brother if he wandered out. Someone would say, he's not here, look, he just left.
I just want to be clear
There's
that it's
no
not gonna be
privacy
in their
on
personal
Paula's
space.
Law. There is absolutely no privacy issue or concern.
Okay.
So Sarah, can RISE send a letter as well in support? Is that something that you?
We'd be very happy to support it, and we're happy, Bill has been a great supporter at the Rise Walks
I've,
and
yeah,
different
spoken at their
events. And
functions.
one thing that we just, through the cost of living adjustments, so we had a little bit of money that we were able to buy new prevention education materials, is we want to reach out to the large, all the agencies in this county to be able to provide some training to their staff on how to recognize signs of sexual abuse among those who are developmentally disabled and not able to verbally communicate that.
That's helpful, thanks again. So now the next thing we're going to do is call the vote.
Aye.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5-0.
Thank you very much, and thanks for taking the time to present. What we're going to do next is the resolution to appoint 3 deputy EMS coordinators. Thank you. Second. Okay, now, this actually came up last month, and I know we're trying really, really hard to have 2 weeks lead time so that things can go through financial and legal. Fortunately for you, you have an advocate in your public safety commissioner who said, we already brought this up, we already talked about it, it's a volunteer position, there's no financial or legal implications. So if you could just in one sentence, 30 seconds, just say how we're going back to this system and why the system is better than what we had coming into this.
I apologize, it's been a week of Mondays. The previous system with the advisory board was non-functional for at least 4 years, if not longer. We been handling EMS issues in the county with quarterly captains meetings. They've been working great. They've been well attended. They're professional. There's an agenda. There's no one person getting up preaching, pushing their private agenda, and it's been working great. We had
agendas for the EMS advisory board when I was.
when you were there, but
But they
after
weren't private agendas.
no, but
After Annie left, it all fell apart.
Basically. And the way we're doing it now is working very well. It's very well supported. And there were deputies previously. The people, for various reasons, no one could fill the positions. So now we want to refill 3 of them.
Thank you very much. So moving,
We moved in second, you need to see the vote.
All in favor?
any questions? Okay, 1,
Too
2,
late.
3, 4,
Five
5.
zip.
Thank you.
Thank you. For anybody who says we don't do anything. All righty, next, I lost my spot.
Reports. Reports.
Yay, okay. So you're, this is very brief. What I asked Dick and Alex to do, and also everyone else, DA, probation, and the sheriff's department, is just to take a very quick snapshot. Where were we a year ago? Where are we now? What have we accomplished? What are the goals that we're trying to achieve moving forward? So everybody has 30 seconds. Go.
Go.
Okay, Sullivan County Emergency Services Training Center, we did over 1,000 students this year, including local police, EMS, DPW, probation, Sheriff's Office, Patrol, Corrections, New York State Police, NCON, U.S. Park Service, and tow truck operators. We had them there for a safety class.
1,000?
1,000 students, yes. And
Thank
we
you.
have it all signed and documented. After Hurricane Irene and Lee, that was way back in our memories, I'm sure, we wound up during that storm opening up the EOC, and we lost
Okay, you
power,
guys
and
down
we
there.
had no way to keep the place going except temporary generators. Through a grant we got through Homeland Security and the help that the DPW did, they installed this new generator for us so that when Superstorm Sandy came in last October, anybody remember the dates?
October
October
31st.
29th.
October
29th and
31st.
30th, thank you. Tom, I know it was on the tip of your tongue.
Halloween, I
We
know
ran
that.
into another 5.5-day period with no power out there. And some of you were there, the legislators were very good, and this new generator never missed a beat. It ran fantastic, and that's proof of why we need one in this building, and before I get off this job, I'm gonna find the money for it, okay?
As long as you can find the money.
You've got to, folks, because this place, you're gonna get hit one day with a power outage, and this is the heart of our government, and if we lose power, we're finished here. There's just so much the batteries will run the computers and the phones, and that's done, but I'll get that on another day. We also were able to review 8 of our operation guides from the Bureau of Fire that the fire service uses, and of course we've been working with the Homeland Security grants towards the radio interoperability program. That is becoming more intense all the time. My friend Art Hussey is really working his tail off to help us get through it all, but it's all coming together. We just completed a hazmat grant for 09, where the state now says that we have to work with our regional partners, which are Ulster, Orange, and Rockland County. So we completed that grant, got a couple new pieces of detection equipment, and we were just awarded a new grant, which I have not brought to you yet, because in the state's infinite wisdom, Rockland County is going to take the lead, for which we, Orange, and Ulster will share. And it's not very much money. It was $71,000 between the 4 of us, so we'll bring that to the table in the very near future. And that was our timeline for emergency management.
Thank you very much.
Let me keep that.
Okay, Jim?
You have in front of you a handout, kind of basically summarizes what we did, and how many criminal cases we handled last year. You'll see that we handled 3,400, more than 3,400 criminal cases. That was a decrease of about 13% from 2011. I've then broken down beneath that where our cases come from, and I've specifically looked at the Class A misdemeanors, DWIs, and the felonies for those numbers. Total felony arrests in 2012 were 651. That was a decrease of about 7% from 2011. You'll see the next bullet is a little bit more disturbing. Total violent felony arrests were 179. That's an increase of 14%. So while total felony arrests were down, violent felonies were up, almost double what we were down. I've also broken that down as well into what are we seeing, what are these violent arrests. The majority of them are home burglaries, almost 40%. The next highest classification is violent assaults, 29%, and then robbery is the third highest. Our total felony cases processed by plea or indictment, which means they either pled guilty or they were indicted by a Sullivan County grand jury, was 277. That was an increase of just a little bit, 1% from 2011. It's the highest number since 2008, when we did 310 indictments in the SCIs. The total felony trials in county court were 9. That was a decrease from 13 in 2011. And the preliminary numbers from New York State show total crime reported in Sullivan County is flat year to year. Now, they look at a number of different index-based crimes. They don't look at all crimes. They look at the FBI index-based crimes, which include property crime, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, aggravated assault, robbery, forcible rape, murder. So those numbers show basically static in 2011 and 2012. And you'll see with the historical data, I've got it going back to 2006, the index crimes in Sullivan County, and then you can also compare them to the New York numbers. I've added them, the New York State, New York City numbers, and non-New York City numbers. And what you'll see, if you look at the index crimes reported to police by region, which is the last document in the handout, you'll see that New York City's dramatic decrease in crime is driving New York State's decrease in crime. But you don't necessarily see that same dramatic decrease outside of the city. And we're seeing that in the numbers throughout the upstate counties. Dramatic increase in burglary in 2011. It was up over 25% from 2010. Our 2012 numbers ticked even higher. So now we're up almost 30%, 28 on the high, 28 on the low, 30 on the high over 2010. We had 544 reported burglaries in 2011. They're all over. No, the question was, where are the burglaries? What we've seen, and I've looked at this, is we've seen the burglaries in the concentrated areas, Liberty, Fallsburg, Monticello, go down. Those numbers have gone down. Of course, somebody once said to me, all the places that were there to be hit have already been hit. So there's nothing left to take. But we see the increase in burglaries are specifically in our areas where we do not have municipal police forces. I think that's due in large part to the fact that there is a municipal police force as well. I think that they drive those numbers down through patrol and through constant patrol. Whereas if you're on a rural street, you may not get any patrol or sporadic patrol because they're covered so much. So the increase in the numbers has been driven by the sheriff and by the state. But you can see I thought we were going to hit 600. Thank God I don't think we're going to in 2012. I think it's going to be shy of that. And you'll see that the increase in reported crime from 10 and 11 in Sullivan County is opposite to the statewide trend of declining crime. But we had that huge increase in 2010. And there's a difference here. When you look at the numbers that are on the index-based crimes, those are the crimes that again, the FBI is tracking, and they do the tracking. The FBI does this tracking. New York State doesn't decide what they track. The FBI decides. My numbers, the numbers you're seeing in total prosecutions, those are bodies. Those are people that were arrested. So a lot of times people commit crime and they don't get arrested. So they're not reflected in that number. We don't arrest everybody who commits a crime. We're not that good yet. But you'll see the increases in 10 in prosecutions. Total prosecutions were up almost 19%. Felony arrests were up 19.4%, and violent felonies up 21%. So we've come back in 11, and I think we're going to come back even a little bit more in 12, but not to back where we were in 09. We're still higher than where we were in 09. And of course, our support staff and our staffing remains at the levels it has been since we cut. So that's my.
Thanks for taking all the time to compile these stats. If you did get a copy of this Legislative Gazette on page 10, it does have this FBI report on uptick in major crimes follows a 10-year drop in terms of New York State.
No. Her question was, is all rape forcible? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The FBI only tracks forcible rape where threat or threat of force is used, they do not track child sex abuse, which we consider to be violent, obviously on the New York level. They only track forcible rape. No, statutory rape's not included, including sexual relations with underage people.
Well, I realize it's after 5. I just want to make a very brief recap with regards to a couple of conversations we've had, Jim, in which you referenced what used to be called the CPU and you wanted to call it an IPU. Am I completely confused? Community Policing Unit?
Yeah, I wanted to create a community investigative unit.
So what's
Almost
the
like a CI.
acronym?
CI.
CI, okay, I got all my alphabet letters jumbled.
Which would put, and we've done that on a ad hoc basis, and it seems to be working very well. We have meetings, we try to do them monthly, sometimes we don't get them in, but we try to have a meeting at the DA's office where the investigators meet and we discuss our common issues and the things that we can help each other on. My idea was to try to put that into practice in terms of putting these people together, the investigators, the detectives together for a week of work where they could concentrate on different areas of the county where we're having these issues. Like if the place is getting hit with burglaries like Grahamsville is currently, they're experiencing a rash of that sort of thing. We could put them out there to try to concentrate, to try to get these people. These are daytime burglaries. These are people who are going to work and coming home and finding their houses torn asunder. This is what it's about. They know the people are gone. They're going in when they're out. One woman had her house hit twice. They hit it once, they hit it again. So, that would be a team that could concentrate their efforts like the CPU did, except not in a non-uniform presence, in an investigative presence, because everything's connected.
Right.
Tentacles all over these counties that seem to be connected.
Okay, so before we go on to the last report, is there anything you want to say about having had your experience, Captain Meir, both in Liberty and Monticello with regards to... Chief.
In regards to what the district attorney said, as far as criminal trends in the county are constantly evolving, and one of the things that in the last few years since the burglaries have spiked, the economy has gone down drastically. So I think we're seeing some people that normally wouldn't have been involved in criminal activity now forced to be involved in criminal activity. Also, it's much more commonplace to use drugs than it was several years ago. They're much more available. There's new drugs coming into the area. People are experimenting with household items, and I think that could be a driving factor as well. As far as another driving factor for breaking into houses, we've seen a lot of burglaries that are copper-related burglaries, precious metals. And this is something that was almost non-existent years ago. People would break in, steal electronics. Well, electronics are expensive to buy, but you're not going to get anything on the streets on a resale for electronics. The money is in metal. And the district attorney is working vigorously, and he has set up a data bank for us to track the purchase of precious metals. And I think collectively all law enforcement agencies in the county are going to work together and concentrate on that, and we're going to see a reduction in burglaries, at least in those areas.
Thank you. And that's a good segue over to you, Sheriff.
We compiled some numbers. There's nothing dramatic. The numbers from 11 to 12 in the categories of motor vehicle and traffic enforcement, arrests. We didn't get it broken down by felony or misdemeanor, and DWIs. There's really no radical changes. Most of the numbers have gone down a little bit. DWIs, there was a change there. In 11, we had a total of 49. I'm sorry, in 11, we had a total of 83. And in 12, we had 49. Arrests in 12 is 83, and in 11 it's 126. Our
That's a big
total calls
drop.
for service are up by approximately close to 300. Our calls for service. I would attribute part of the numbers being down. For most of 11, we started losing people to the local PDs and one to a disciplinary. So we've been down an additional 5 people. So you don't have the bodies out there, harder to make the arrests. But we've been getting hammered for the last several years with the burglaries. It's been a problem. We're out there actively working in Never Single, so the state police are out there. I believe Fallsburg was working close with DEP, trying to do some stuff. Everybody's actively out there. Most of our burglaries we're finding are being driven by drug use. As Chief Muir hit on, it's the drugs that are driving this. People need their fix. A lot of them have a very expensive habit, and at the beginning of their day, all they want to know is, I've got to get what's going to make me feel good today. We've got people where I've seen the kids stole from their parents, grandparents, friends. The rural areas are getting hit because I think they're just roving around. In a village, you have more of an opportunity to be seen. You've got people walking around. It's condensed. When you get out in Forestburg, when you get out in Lumberland, when you get out in Delaware, Callicoon, Fremont, Neversink. Did I say Neversink once already? Coshecton. Coshecton, thank you. People, they're stopping at a house, they're knocking on a door, is the basic MO. And if they encounter somebody, they ask, the latest was, we're doing carpet work, do you need any carpet work done? Sometimes you see a car, sometimes they don't. If nobody answers the door, they're going around the back and kicking the door in, or breaking a window, entering, and in a few minutes they're gone. Some stuff has turned up at pawn shops. Some stuff is turned up but already been sold, where we've made the connection through the video and the identification. It's a terrible problem, multifaceted. It's not one thing we can do to stop it. Every time you get a kid hooked on these drugs, it's a lifetime of addiction. It's a lifetime of problems for the families. That's why we're trying to do as much drug work as we can. I know the local PDs are, the state police. Jim is very hard on that. Anybody you keep off of the drugs before they get hooked is a real major win. It's not one. It's compounded over the years and by the family affected. I had a friend of mine contact me. His kid stole from their house, took the TV, mother's jewelry, said he didn't do it, but they found the video and the ID where he pawned the stuff. The stuff was already gone.
There was a video camera there.
Yeah, most of the, not in the house.
In the pawn shop.
Pawn shop. But one of the other problems we're running into is a lot of these guys are getting nailed by going to a pawn shop. One of the other things is to get rid of the stuff, go right to your drug dealer, and how much drugs can I get for a flat screen TV? How much drugs can I get for a laptop computer or these coins? And they're trying to make the direct trade, and then a lot of times this stuff is taken out of the area to be pawned or gotten rid of. But we still do find people showing up. It's a mixed bag. But it is a problem, as everybody else involved has said. Everybody's doing what they can and will continue to. Can't say much more about it.
Well, no, I thank you for taking that snapshot so we can see where we are compared to a year ago. And I accidentally went from the district attorney to the sheriff, Jeff. It was not intentional.
Well, real quick, probation has achieved 100% compliance with all state mandated protocols in reference to supervision and training. There's been an increase of 20% of DNA submissions to the state and collections by probation. We've increased polygraph testing for sex offenders during last year, and we've experienced an increase of about 10% people being sentenced to probation as opposed to the year before.
I didn't hear the last part, sorry.
There's about 10% more people that were sentenced to probation than the year before. So
Oh,
we
I
have
see.
increased population at this point.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us a sense of where we are with the video conferencing? Because I know that about a year ago was when the discussions first started.
The probation's all set. I guess there's some issue with setting up appropriate place in the jail.
What's the hold up there in the jail?
We have to ask Lauren.
It's an MIS issue?
Hal can probably speak to that.
Hi,
Well,
Al.
hello. We're
Come on
just
in.
waiting on DPW to fabricate some sort of box that we can secure this camera in, because we still have to be able to utilize that room once in a while for civilians. So,
Is that the visitation room?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
so as soon as we get something, they design something that we can secure that camera, because I guess the camera's very expensive and we don't need anybody breaking it.
You're speaking of public
So
comment?
hopefully in the next week or two, that'll be accomplished. We've had some other issues that they had to address on an emergency basis, so that takes precedence over that box that we have to build.
Okay. So just keep us posted, because I know other counties have been asking about it. So I think we now have public comment. I know everybody wants to go, so if you have a public comment, please keep it short. And if you don't,
God bless you.
meeting adjourned.
Motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
I'll get it at some point. Second. Thank you.
Oh, you kidding me?